let's start. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
The Fearless Three Musketeers, we are together for the final round of Truth Bombs with the Saints for summer 2020. All about the Fawns, Saint Alphonsus Liguori. So welcome.
Handsome man.
You know what? That's not the, when I think of Liguori, that's not the picture I think of. I think of the one with him with his chin touching his chest, but I'll tell you why.
At the end of his,
Yeah. So welcome, youth ministry fans from all lands. It's always good to be together with Bradley Barnes from Guardian Angels and J. Tyler Marsh, now from IHM. He is officially on the east side, but it's okay. I still love you both, East Siders.
Oh,
I will cross the bridge for you. That's what I do.
But you're not technically West Side.
Where I work is Northwest Side, but where I live,
West Side.
I
was gonna say where you work is not canonical West Side. So
no, and technically where I live is not quite canonically West Side, and where I grew up, Montford Heights. A true West Sider would say Montford Heights is not West Side, but
I married one of those people, so watch yourself.
But I do love the West Side. Ron's Roost is open. Christine's is open. The world is a happy place.
Is Putz's open?
Putz's has been open. They've closed off and on for different things over the course, to change different policies and stuff. But yeah, Putz's has been open. Little Goody Shop's been open. The world is a good and fine place. Okay, so we are going to talk first about Bradley's got to go off camera here for a second. But let's talk about, before he comes back and tells us why he loves the Fawns. I mean, he is the one who calls them the Fawns, Tyler, so that's too much fun. What do you love about Alphonsus Liguori? Do you have any favorite stories about Alphonsus Liguori you can share?
Well, the one that I have is when I was in seminary, I was desperately looking for something to read during adoration times. And I was looking for something that was going to engage me a little bit, but not over-engage. And I was kind of being very particular. And I had read a lot of different stuff and a lot of different saints. And I was kind of over certain saints for time, kind of burned out on them. So I was kind of just looking around, and I found this little reflection book that Alphonsus Liguori had written, like, we'll spend time with Jesus, and it was excellent. It was everything I needed, and it was just little reflections for time in front of the Eucharistic adoration, and it was really awesome. But he's a great saint. He's a cool dude. He has a great name. And he's very underrated, I think. Like, he's, in terms of like great theologians and and starting religious order, like he did it all. And I don't know if he gets credit for all the good stuff that he does.
Yeah, and I should have known who Alphonsus Liguori was long before, my great obsession with the saints and finding saints to be more as friends versus those far off people that we just mention at church every once in a while. Because my mom and my grandmother loved their Liguori magazine, that little magazine they would get. I had no idea where the name came from. I just knew it was Catholic, and they loved it so much. But the thing that I did not know when I started working at St. John Newman was, since John Newman was a Redemptorist, guess which order Alphonsus Liguori founded? He founded the Redemptorists, which is so cool, because I have some books of St. John Newman's because we've gone to a shrine. We've taken kids to the shrine. But one of John Newman's prayers that I've edited, but we've taught the kids, and most of our kids know it by heart, is, let me everywhere know and adore the holy will of God. Oh, my guardian angel, help me to become more like my best friend, my most merciful Lord, Jesus Christ. Instill in me humility in word and deed. Accept me as your disciple. Teach me to become worthy of being the last and least of the servants of my master, Jesus Christ. Love the prayer, but St. John Newman has an additional sentence in there that I actually do not include when the kids memorize the prayer, because I want them to discover who their patrons are. But for St. John Newman, he says, "And you, my holy patrons, St. Joseph, St. Francis Xavier, St. Vincent, and St. Alphonsus, pray for me." He loved St. Alphonsus, and because John Newman was a Redemptorist, obviously he knew a lot about Alphonsus Liguori. And Tyler, you touched upon something. He is a doctor of the church. He wrote a whole lot. He's considered the doctor of prayer, which is, we've talked about a lot of doctors of the church doing truth bombs with the saints. And I think maybe he's underrated as a theologian, and I think Bradley could give some insight into this, because he's so daggone practical. And you do not have to use highfalutin language to be a great theologian. You actually can be practical and be a great theologian. Actually, those people speak much better to the people of the church and the people of God sometimes than those with higher vocabulary, I guess we can say. So, Mr. Barnes, what do you love about the Fonz? I'm sure the list is long.
Indeed. Oh my gosh. Well, if I was thinking about what I could narrow it down to. I love his practicality. He's either known for, like you said, very practical suggestions, or very highly thought out, highly developed ideas. Because yes, he's got something as cool as like, here's a hands-on thing that you can use to pray through the elements of like the nativity and the story of Jesus' birth. And then here's a multi-volume, hundreds and hundreds of page work called the Moral Theology of Alphonsus Liguori. He's a patron saint of moral theologians. So he's got all of that craziness kind of wrapped up too. Patron of confessors, moral theologians, a patron of vocations. I like to think of him as a patron of youth as well. So yeah, I love that he's just this Renaissance man. He encompasses so much. He's got a story where it wasn't easy for him to get into the priesthood. He kind of, followed a different path first, and then had an experience where he decided to, radically follow Jesus and enter the priesthood. Super smart guy. He's very flawed.
He was a canon and civil lawyer by the age of 16. Just a little smart.
I know, just a little bit.
A little bit.
But I mean, I love that he was so flawed too, because he left for the priesthood partially because, and there's a lot tied up in this, but he lost his first case, or it was the first case that he lost, which wasn't even necessarily his fault. It was a long, ongoing, like multi-year case that a lot of different lawyers had been through. But, so his story of vocation kind of comes out of, what the world would look at as failure and embarrassment. He suffered from scruples his entire life. So he was always super, super hard on himself and feeling like, he had to struggle against the thought of unworthiness, or, he had to bump up against the thought that I'm a sinner. And so because of that, he learned to trust so much in God's mercy. As a confessor, he wasn't like, put all these extra restrictions on people just so they can get forgiveness. He was like, when he would preach his missions, he instructed confessors, be radical with your forgiveness. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's so cool. And just, he just had this true servant's heart. He did things he wanted to do, but he had a docility that if the Lord was calling him to something different, he'd do something different. Just a really, really super interesting, cool guy. And at the beginning of his ministry, he did some stuff that very much to me feels like youth ministry-esque, called his evening chapels, where he would gather, young people and young men from the area and do like some music and some like catechism and some community building and stuff. And I was like,
Just
that's
like
youth group
ministry.
Yep. So so he's my dude.
He is your man. And I am always fascinated by people who fail and pick themselves up again. And even trying to found the Redemptorists, I found out that pretty much everyone had left him but one lay brother, and yet the congregation managed to survive, and he was able to actually officially have it approved so many years later. And I find that so interesting. And the other thing in our house, Alphonsus Liguori has become really important because my oldest, Abby, suffers from rheumatoid arthritis, and Liguori is patron saint of arthritis as well.
That's right.
Because his neck was so bent with arthritis, he actually he was bent over severely and formed a sore on his chest because his chin would rest on his chest, and suffered extreme physical suffering as well as you had mentioned, spiritual suffering as well. Was one of those who worked himself to exhaustion, which I think that's where John Newman gets it from, because John Newman worked himself to exhaustion. And he loved, I love when people pick 2 or 3 things that they preach on all the time, or that's really at the heart of what they do. And one of the things I read said he had 3 great images in his preaching and teaching: Jesus in the crib, Jesus on the cross, Jesus vibrantly alive and in the Eucharist. And of course, then his 4th was always Mary. He loved Mary. So I can see where people would be really drawn to the 3 images of Jesus. And
I think that's the mark of any good communicator of the good news, is we all have things that excite us the most. I was just talking to some friends of ours, other youth ministers, a couple days ago. And when I preach or teach or whatever, some of the same things get brought up. I always tell my students, I'm like, sorry, I've told you this story, or I've talked about this before. They're like, it's fine, just go. So that's so cool to see a doctor of the church be that way too.
I consider the Holy Spirit, when we repeat ourselves over and over again, I think the Holy Spirit's like the Facebook ads. And they constantly come forward the same thing over, and it's like, did Facebook listen to what I was saying? And that's how I feel the Holy Spirit is. The Holy Spirit just keeps pushing the little ads right through, and I think it's fantastic. And he always signed, Alphonsus Liguori always signed his letters, "Long live Jesus and Mary." And that just makes me smile a little bit. So so when you showed the image of Alphonsus Liguori, I rarely think of him like that. I almost always think of him as the older arthritic man, because it connects to Abby so much. Thankfully, she's not that bent over, but hopefully she never is that bent over. You do love fawns. Okay, Jay Tyler, you want the first question? I get to answer questions today too, because there's only 3 of us, so that's kind of fun. Are you ready?
Yours will be the best questions, or best answers too.
I'm ready.
Are you ready? Ready? Okay. If Saint Alphonsus could replace a body part with an animal's body part, what do you think he would choose? Remember, he is Mr. Arthritis, so.
This is a good one. I'm going to say he would. I'm trying to go a couple different ways on this one. Let me think here. So my first thought was, since he's always he's a moral theologian, he, founded a religious order, he did all this different amazing stuff. He probably did a lot of speaking. And then I thought maybe he would want to counteract that with something that has good listening, so that he could have better balance. So some sort of animal that has good listening skills. You'd have their ears.
So elephant ears, or
yeah, like an elephant ear, or some kind of
or some other donut or pastry.
Yes.
I think of an elephant ear.
Oh, they're yummy too, aren't they?
Yeah.
I kind of was thinking, even though I love the counteracting the preaching part with the ear, I was thinking a giraffe's neck. Wouldn't have been.
Doesn't it have even more joints though? Wouldn't that get even more messed up?
Yeah, maybe.
I was thinking. If the giraffes had arthritis, it would be horrible.
His head would be at his feet. Maybe that wouldn't be good.
I was thinking snail shell, or camel humps. because he
Oh,
traveled
okay.
so much, like, and oftentimes, like, he was just back and forth for huge parts of his life. So the
Mhm.
ability to like just pick up. So I can imagine him like storing all this stuff. I know snails don't really store stuff, but if I was a snail, I would store
I
stuff
would
in my
store stuff.
shell.
Yeah.
Maybe a hermit crab or something, or
Hmm.
like just any kind of an animal that's got something that they kind of pick up, move, or the camel just for like water source. I like a camelback when I'm, the little pack things when I'm walking.
Yeah. Oh, with the little straw, and then you can drink your
Mhm.
little water as you go. Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Ooh, we're so creative this morning. Who knew on a Friday morning it could happen like this?
Is this the last truth bombs, Becky?
It's the last one for the summer. And what we've decided,
Mm.
my pastor, Father Kyle, he says it's really important that the things we learn during Corona Tide, that's what we like to call it, Corona Tide, do not get left behind. So when we prepare for breaks from youth ministry, so Christmas time, Thanksgiving, that we would do truth bombs and they would be released when we're on break.
That's great.
Which
Good.
is really
well,
awesome.
Yeah, that's why we got to be extra creative today, because it's the last one for Corona Tide.
For Corona Tide. Well, Corona Tide continues, but yes, for this
Listen,
little
get
segment.
behind me, Satan. Don't even say that. It's getting cured tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Well, everyone disagrees, so who knows? It could have already been cured and we just don't know yet.
Yeah, very true.
Okay. Mr. Barnes, this could be interesting. Let's see what you say. If he kept a locket, whose photo would St. Alphonsus keep inside of it?
The Blessed Mother. No question.
Oh, the Blessed Mother.
Yeah, not a photo, obviously, but some kind of an image.
Some kind of image. Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
He had a couple siblings he was pretty close to. So maybe practically I could see him. He had a brother who's a lay person who he was kind of mentoring as an older sibling. He had some other friends he was in close correspondence with, but he was more of a letter writer. So if he needed to remember you, he was probably writing you. I think, I can't remember what year the brown scapular Our Lady of Mount Carmel appeared to St. Simon's Stock.
I don't know, because Alphonsus is more like 1600s, so I'd have to look and see when.
Yeah, but I just imagine, I carry my, I wear my scapular almost like that kind of locket kind of deal. I can imagine with his great Marian devotion doing the same kind of thing.
Yeah, and sometimes kids who don't understand scapulars, or when we first introduce them to scapulars, don't quite understand what's the purpose behind it. And I tell them it's similar to like my wedding ring. Of course, I know I'm married, but it's a nice reminder. Hey, girl, you're married. Remember that? So it's the same kind of thing. Hey, we have this love for God and for His mother, and it's important to keep it handy and keep it close.
I touch my wedding ring often throughout the day as I'm thinking about my wife. I hold my scapular often in times of trouble, just to remind myself. We're human beings. We like to use all of our
tangibles.
senses.
Yep, we like the tangibles. It's a good thing. Well, so
do.
I'm very impressed with your answer. A little married, but a little family thrown in there. Look at that. He was Italian Catholic. I assumed he did have siblings. So.
Oh yeah, he had like 6 or 7.
Oh yeah, wow. She was a saint herself.
One was named, it was either Hercule or Hercules. That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
His dad was, I think, Giuseppe.
Oh, Giuseppe. I love that for an Italian name.
Make sure that's correct.
Oh yeah, you Google that. Okay, I just saw what my question was and I have no idea what I'm going to answer. My question is, what does he secretly collect? But see, he traveled all the time, so that makes it hard to think that he would have collected anything. And he was so daggone practical. He wrote a lot. Oh, maybe because he wrote a lot, maybe he collected favorite pens. Quills? Would it be quills in the 1600s? I guess it would be.
I think probably quills, yeah.
Quills. He probably had a whole favorite set of quills in his bag. If he was a writer, I love my pens. Right now I'm really into the big pens that are funny colors. So this is teal. Look, I have a green one too. So I understand that if he was a writer, he probably had favorite quills, you know,
Yeah.
the little pot of ink in the back. I mean, he's pre-Revolutionary War and they used quills. So yeah, it would be quills. So he secretly collected awesome
I
quills.
was thinking too, with all of his travels, maybe, because I was thinking like me and my little brother, whenever we go to baseball games, we always get a little souvenir baseball. And I was thinking maybe he has a little something that he carries with him that is like a little memento of where he's been and where he's going. Like a little remember the different places that he's preached and taught and whatnot.
I could also I was also thinking before you said that, Tyler, was something with Mary, and it could be similar to this. If he loves Mary so much, he would press flowers from each place he was at. So he would open his Bible and see, you know, oh, that was very romantic of me, you know, love of Mary, a little flower, and I love my garden. So I just totally put that upon Alphonsus. Sorry if you didn't like flowers, Alphonsus Liguori, but now you do, according to Truth Bombs.
You know he wrote a bunch of hymns too.
He did.
Mm-hmm. I can't find the musical settings for most of them.
Mm-hmm.
I got a note here. He wrote the Italian Carol. I can't say it in Italian, but From Starry Skies Descending. I think I've heard that one before.
Mm-hmm.
But so I must imagine. So we have a younger priest friend that we all know, and Tyler and I know very well, and he collects just all kinds of musical instruments. So maybe he would have a music room too.
Yeah, Liguori was a man of many talents, many talents. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, all those instruments. I can even imagine what they would be.
One would be a zamponia, which is an Italian bagpipe.
An Italian bagpipe. The things you know, Barnes, I'm always impressed by the things you know.
Things I'm reminded of. I've got Wikipedia open right here. Because I need to be reminded, and I got my book here for perusal.
Your quotes about Alphonsus, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mr. Marsh, here's your question. If Alphonsus Liguori was a dessert, what dessert would he be?
I feel like I always get this question.
I don't use it all the time, so.
Like every time I do this one with you, I always get the dessert question. And it makes me hungry afterwards. I always have to go eat.
It is almost lunchtime when we record this.
It is almost lunchtime. Okay. If Alphonsus Liguori was a dessert, what would he be? I'm gonna say something like extravagant, something like something like with a lot of different flavors, since he did a lot of different stuff, like not just like a chocolate cake, but like, you know, like a chocolate turtle pecan cheesecake, something. You know, he did all kinds of different things. He had many different talents.
Maybe one of those wedding cakes where each layer is something different.
Yeah, something where it's just like, oh, what's this? Because that's what I feel about St. Alphonsus is the more I learn, the more I'm like, that's neat. He did that too? Or it's like, man, because usually you find a saint and it's like, okay, they started a religious order, they were a bishop, or they were a doctor of the church, or they were a theologian, but he did it all. And he was a bishop, and he was going against Jansenism, and he was, started a religious order and all those troubles with that. So he was a man of many talents and many different things. So I feel like his dessert would be very eclectic.
Very eclectic. Bradley, what were you going to say? You had your hand up.
Neapolitan ice cream.
Ooh, Neapolitan ice cream.
Because he was in Neapolitan Italy.
There it is.
I'm not quite sure where you're going to go with this question, Bradley. It says, where would Alphonsus Liguori feel the most out of place?
I think, oddly enough, because it's where he came from, kind of where he escaped. So I think like high society, he was often interacting with like the Vatican, but like I'm even thinking like the Roman Curia. like he liked to be among the people, you know? So, and he took a lot of cues. He had a great devotion to St. Philip Neri
Oh,
also.
who you also adore.
Yeah, and yeah, I just think he wanted to be out among the unchurched. So whatever took him away from that, I think made him feel uncomfortable and dissatisfied. So whatever high society would mean to a person of that time, I think that's where he'd be least comfortable.
Yeah, and I had found something that points right to that, the idea of him not really being comfortable with those who are wealthier. In one of the accounts of his life, it actually says he realized he could no longer be comfortable in his role of popular preacher living apart from the poor. He actually wanted to be with the poor. So he left his family and friends just to go live with the poor. So quite a sacrifice, but also shows where his comfort level was as well. And in his supreme dedication to his ministry as well, and knowing and avoiding distraction. Not that family and friends are distraction, but we sometimes have to be careful about those things. Sure.
Whoever loves mother and father, brother and sister more than me. I mean, yeah, harsh words, but ultimately true.
Yep. God is first. God is first. Okay, my question. See, I shuffled these, so I didn't know what I was getting. So now I'm going, oh my goodness gracious.
Or wait, here, hold on. Do you want me to just throw you a curveball and me ask you a question?
You could.
Okay. What would Alphonsus Liguori's, if he had to make a Yankee candle, like what would his favorite smell be? What would his Yankee candle smell be?
What would his Yankee candle smell be?
Boom. That's a great question, Becky. I don't even know. That's why I'm asking you.
Oh, and I do love a good Yankee candle, though I'm trying to stay away from Yankee candles. They support some causes we probably shouldn't be paying money to. But
then Candle Lab. Candle Lab is local.
Candle Lab, Rude Candles is also local, a local Ohio place. So, but I'm just going to go with a generic flavor only because generic scent. I'm really thinking, okay, let's just be really basic here. Alphonsus Liguori, if he had an open sore on his chest, it probably stunk. Okay, so I'm thinking he probably would want a candle to kind of overcome the gangrene kind of smell that I'm sure it emitted. So I'm really thinking very basic, either more like a vanilla cream, something like that, or if he was truly a lover of all things church, it might be a little frankincense thrown in, only because a little churchy smell or something.
I like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe he'd dig like really deep into, I'm going to own the funky wound smell, and it'd be like a durian fruit candle. You ever smelled a durian fruit? It smells like butt and like decaying flesh. It's gross.
You're like Father Ed. Father Ed asked once when we were recording this, this is for kids, right? I have to watch what I say. Yes, you do. That was a very good edit of yours. It smelled like butt.
Wasn't even an edit. I think that sounds much funnier than the other way I could have said that. Butt's a funny word. Butt's a hilarious word.
Yes, so he would embrace the butt smell and just, let everyone enjoy it with him.
Well, then he could blame the smell on the candle. It's like when you've got a dog and you blame your farts on the dog.
Tyler Marsh.
Yeah.
And that was a good question. I appreciate it. Do love my candles. Who would Alphonsus Liguori be if he had been in Harry Potter?
Oh boy.
Please do not say Ronald Weasley.
It should have been. Tyler needs a question about Lord of the Rings, not Harry Potter.
Well, you can do Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter or both. How about that?
It's just a running joke between two best friends.
We'll stick with the question. I'm gonna say that's a good question. I'm gonna say Dumbledore.
Totally.
Because because he's just the old wise guy and he knows all the things and
Mhm.
he's just, doing all the different stuff. And yeah, that's kind of my first thought. I really
And
don't
the-
think anyone else.
And the end of his life, he gets he gets cursed by that ring, and he's still out there chugging away.
Yeah. Yep.
The thing about Dumbledore is he never yells at the kids.
Mm.
And I think, Bradley, you talked about Alphonsus going into confessions, hearing confessions, what that was like, trying to give practical advice, trying to really bring people closer to God and get away from too much of the legalistic stuff. And so I think that's the way Dumbledore was when he would reprimand these kids. He wanted them to learn from the mistakes they had made and really figure out whether some of those things were mistakes. I think that's the other thing too.
Absolutely.
So yeah, Dumbledore, when I saw that question earlier, I totally went the Dumbledore way. Like he is.
Yeah, right away where I went.
Absolutely Dumbledore. If his chin was on his chest, did he ever shave around it? Because I was thinking we don't have pictures of Alphonsus with a beard, so it kind of makes me wonder. Would he have had a beard at some point? You never know. You never know. Okay, Mr. Barnes.
My computer was.
No, you're fine. It is your question. And it is usually the question I end up asking Mr. Kodikas because he has so many of them. St. Alphonsus Liguori has a secret tattoo. Where is it and what is it of? And you too have tattoos, so it's a very good question for you as well.
I do.
Yeah.
I have to believe he'd go my route where I've got, these huge arms of mine. Yeah, but I've got the Sacred and Immaculate Hearts. So let's say Immaculate Heart, probably a little Immaculate Heart, Sacred Heart design.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps like almost if you can imagine like a clada. I know that's Irish and he's Italian, but that's a tattoo design I've thought of is like a clada, like so maybe almost like a chest piece, like he's wearing it like protection, because that's why you wear a scapular here, is like it's that protective element. Or perhaps down by like an ankle or on a foot, if we're talking like really secret tattoo, because he was a missioner and so he's on the go. So to have the Sacred and Immaculate Hearts blessing his work as he goes out into the world.
Wow.
Or Calvin and Hobbes. Those two.
Or Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah.
There we go.
On his left elbow.
On his left elbow.
For no reason. I just, he and I are
No
like
reason.
two peas in a pod. I think that'd be a cool tattoo.
No reason at all except for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, since we are coming close to the end of our time, it would be nice for us all to answer the same question and see what we come up with. So for our last question, for Truth Bombs with St. Alphonsus Liguori, we all have a chance to answer the same question, and here we go. Which Disney character is he most like? Now you can go anywhere that means Disney. I guess you technically could go into Marvel, technically could go into Star Wars. Don't email me if you're a diehard Disney fan. They did buy them, so technically it's Disney. But who would he most be like when it comes to Disney characters? I got to think about this for a little bit.
Rafiki.
Oh, that was mine.
Oh, Rafiki from The Lion King.
That was mine. I was like, I'm about to say Rafiki.
Oh.
Rafiki.
And I love Rafiki because he's so daggone practical when he smacks him over the head.
Yes, the past can hurt.
Yeah.
But the way I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it.
Yes, we do. Oh, Rafiki is so
That
good.
was the I thought of. I was like, yes, Rafiki. You brain that.
Someday Tyler will be at my level, and we'll be able to share these mind gems as quickly as they're formed. But
for some reason,
as co-kings of Beachmont.
Yes.
The connection of Beachmont, yeah. I keep going to Jiminy Cricket.
No.
Little Jiminy Cricket, little Conscience of
Mhm.
Pinocchio. Yeah, little Jiminy Cricket, but oh man, Rafiki just totally takes it.
Well, Liguori's like, he's got like a young Elvis, old Elvis kind of thing going on, you know, where like none of these kids are gonna know anything about Elvis probably, but young Elvis was like a very different character than Elvis in his later years when he was playing in Vegas and everything. He was a little bit chubbier and very like spangly. So I feel like Jiminy Cricket's a good younger Alphonsus, and I think Rafiki could be the older, wizened,
the older, wiser one.
doing karate for some reason against all the hyenas. I still don't understand why he knew karate. But
they take a lot of license when things like
Mm-hmm.
that. Huh. What else, Tyler? You got anything else for Disney?
I'm thinking since I got brain nap there.
Technically, I was also thinking a little bit about Merlin, Sorcerer in the Stone.
Oh yes, that's a
But
great.
these kids aren't going to know. They're not going to know Sorcerer in the Stone. So,
Yeah, it's been too long since I've seen those movies.
It's always like
I don't know though. Maybe if you're talking Sorcerer or Sword in the Stone, maybe Alphonsus would be more Archimedes than he'd be Merlin.
Ooh. Yeah,
He had
Sword in the
like,
Stone. I said
he had a little
Sorcerer.
edge.
Sword in the Stone.
Yeah, he had a little edge there.
Mm-hmm.
He could be a little critical sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a great movie. Kids, if you got Disney Plus, go watch Sword in the Stone.
Go watch Sword in the Stone. It is. Some of the old
And feel
stuff
really
is
bad for the little female squirrel who gets her heart broken. I always feel really bad for her. Makes me sad.
I also like, is it Bernard and the Rescuers? He would be like little Bernard and the Rescuers. He would be. I'm just going to all the old school of Disney.
I wish there could be a I wish there'd be a reason to bring up Emperor's New Groove, but I can't think of a character he'd be in that movie.
No. No one in Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah, no one in that movie.
No one in Nightmare Before Christmas. I can't think of anyone there either. Oh well.
I guess in Moana, he could technically be.
He could be the grandma.
He would be grandma in Moana.
Oh, that movie. It gets me right in the feels.
Moana is fantastic.
I still haven't seen it.
Oh, it's worth it.
Jonathan Tyler Marshmallow, what is wrong with you?
It's like when Father Kyle told us he had never seen The Incredibles. The Incredibles? We quote The Incredibles in my family. You gotta watch The Incredibles.
I just found out I've been quoting a specific line from The Incredibles to my little sister for like probably 10 years. And she always thought it was something that I came up with, and she only just watched The Incredibles like last month. And I never knew, because she just would always laugh along like she knew what I was talking about.
What was the line?
It's literally just where they bust the bank heist. And Buddy's like, Mr. Incredible. And then the mime guy's like, Monsieur Incroyable. And I just say that all the time. And my sister literally never knew it was why I was just saying Monsieur Incroyable all the time.
All the time. All the time.
Because she's a dingle. She doesn't even know anything.
And Incredibles is an incredible movie.
It's a great movie. Second one holds up too. Pretty good.
Second one does hold up, and God love Jack Jack. He is not Alphonsus Liguori. No. Well, we just took a whole trip down Disney Lane. You know what really worries me about some of the movies that we talked about? Some of those movies were made before I was born, and obviously before the two of you were born. And so kids today are like, those are really old movies. The Incredibles is considered an old movie to kids today.
Oh my.
I know, and that is.
I showed my students The School of Rock last night, and I realized that's kind of an old movie too. It's not a Disney one, but a great one.
But it's
especially if you go to a Catholic school.
The
movie all about a private school. It's a great movie.
Yes. yes, it feeds right into those great classic events that happen in Catholic schools, private schools for sure. Well, we took care of the fawns, Bradley Barnes. This
Yes.
was your goal this summer.
Somebody get me a jukebox. I'm going to hit it.
in Corona Tide. Becky, you just have to do it through Alphonsus
Please.
Liguori.
Yes.
Please, 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 please. So we made it to Alphonsus Liguori.
And me and the
All
Fonz
lineup.
appreciate it.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Well, guys, I appreciate your help with this again. And we'll get this up and posted for the young people. And young people, hey, we're getting together. As long as we don't go purple, Hamilton County, please stay red. Please go orange. It would make me very happy. And we're getting together. The big white tent. We have a big white tent, boys. Did you know that?
I know. You told me. I'm so
I'm
jealous.
jealous. I'm so jealous of all these things.
Big white tent that a parishioner put up for us, which is fantastic. So all the groups can use it, which is awesome. So come see us
I used to
sometime
be-
at the big white tent.
I used to be Pentecostal, so if you need me to come out there and teach you how to use that tent, I mean,
How to
I'm
use it
cool.
appropriately.
None
Yeah,
of your students
and-
are going to know that reference either, but
They're not going to know the reference either.
okay.
And young people and parents, please check your emails because Shaving Cream Wiffle Ball is happening at the end of August. So
I was about to ask you about that. That was when I called you this week. That's what I was gonna talk to you about because I'm thinking about doing that for my football.
Yes, we've been preparing and experimenting with different things because we can't have an all-out shaving cream war at the end like we usually do. They're not supposed to touch each other because, you know, COVID could be everywhere. But we bought the water launchers. Oh, hold on 1 second. You know, these that you pull the water through. If you put shaving
Yes.
cream in a bucket with just a little bit of water, you can pull it in. And we're just going to sacrifice Father Kyle. He's just going to stand 6 feet away and they're all just going to do this to him
nice.
with a little bit
That's
of shame.
fantastic.
So we're
Once
coming
you come up with
something.
ideas for that, let me know. I'm totally gonna steal it because I was thinking about doing something like that.
Yeah, and you know what? That's the whole thing about Corona Tide. Corona cannot ruin everything. We just have to be creative in our way. So
Mhm.
can't take all the fun away. You know, got to still have some fun. So we will see
Amen.
you all soon. Goodbye. Goodbye. You guys can wave to the kids. They love it.
Bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye now.